via mixed market modeling, ROI measurement, and creative testing as brand measurement lead for North America at Google. Currently, he specializes in reach-based tools to help clients and brands improve their reach. He's worked with many renowned brands to optimize their print, social, and digital campaigns. Please give a warm Integrate West Virginia welcome to John Lorenzini.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Aaron. And thanks for having me. Really appreciate you guys coming out and inviting me to West Virginia. This is my first time in West Virginia, and I want to say it's awesome. You guys are super hospitable. I'm from New York. We're not known for our hospitality, so I'm really excited to be here. Just to get a start of like, what's the mix of the audience? How many of you guys recently graduated? Students, raise your hands. Graduates, students, yes. Okay, there we go. And then we have some business professionals, just kind of seeing who's the mix. Okay, cool. Like everyone's kind of everything. I get it. Yeah, it's marketing, it's communications. We're all a little everything, right? Cool. So I guess Aaron did most of the intro, which was great. So this is me. Who's this guy? This is my only professional photo that I have. So I use it all the time because everything else I wouldn't feel comfortable putting up there. So currently I'm the brand measurement lead at Google. And a lot of what I do for the day-to-day is talking to C-levels about, how is digital supposed to be part of their marketing plan? When do they incorporate it? How do they leverage Google, YouTube, search, even our competitors, Facebook? How does everything fit together in one ecosystem? Television kind of was the way back in the day, and as you guys know, this is changing, this is evolving, and these kind of conversations that we have with our clients is really important to, prepare them for the future. So previously, I was Zenith Optimedia, working on General Mills, Mediacom Search Manager for Dell Computers, and MediaVest for Bristol Myers Squibb doing print. So what's really cool is, and for the recent graduate students, getting diversity and taking on different jobs and careers early and switching and understanding the entire ecosystem is very important, I think, for career development, because it's much more expensive and costly if you decide halfway into your life you're like, hey, this isn't the career for me. So definitely diversify early. Cool, so here's an agenda. It's fine, doesn't matter. Let's talk about Google, right? So Google has products with over 1 billion users. We have 7 products, which means there's a lot of data that I get to play with. Now, I'm not going to go too much into data because you guys just ate lunch. I'm towards the end of the day, and I'm afraid I would have bored you to tears. So there's been a lot of cutting and changing of this deck. It started out with a lot of graphs and numbers and formulas, but we all know we don't want that right now. I heard from a couple people more videos, so I incorporated more videos, so get excited. So Google as a publisher, when you're talking about the business professionals in the room, when you're looking at advertising, how it fits into your company, you have your product marketing. Under marketing, you have promotions advertising. This is very, very simplified. It's much more confusing than this. Under advertising, digital media, and then finally Google. We play a very small role in terms of what we can do for your overall marketing mix. So, how much should you put on TV? What about your press releases that you've probably heard earlier? We're a small portion, but the amount of data that we provide and that we collect is really, really interesting and can help business dynamics from top to bottom. So we do category dynamics, what people are more interested in or less interested in. We have consumer behavior, which is saying, hey, this is what they prefer to do. You know how the keynote speaker yesterday mentioned that he hates focus groups? I hate focus groups too. But if people are clicking on an ad and choosing to engage, the little search ads, you can see what's better than what in a real life marketing scenario as opposed to a lab conditions with, do you prefer A or B? Moving along, we have brand perception. We do some brand tracking, consumer interest, market testing, message testing. These are all things that we provide, and there's going to be a couple examples through here. So before we get into everything, I figured I'd just level set with how do we define an insight? And an insight is a credible and novel finding tied to a clear so what. So breaking that down, credible, good data. You guys are coming from either a large data set or a very accurate source. Novel, as in it's not water is wet. People buy more umbrellas when it rains. Okay, great. And then tied to a clear so what are the next action steps? a lot of the problem that we see with data presentations and conversations that we have with clients is you see those charts and it's like, oh, there's a spike, that's good. What happened? That. Okay, there's a dip, there's a valley, that's bad. Why? But nothing changes with their overall business. And this is something that we're trying to connect the business objectives and goals of our clients to the data and what they could do with those peaks and valleys. Because at the end of the day, if you're just nodding your head and you're like, that was interesting and don't change anything, then there's no point in me even giving a presentation. So that's a lot of how we level set with our clients and say, I could dump a whole bunch of data on you, or would you want something that actually changes your business and is important? Cool. So getting into a framework, everyone likes frameworks. It organizes our world. We have a framework called See, Think, Do, Care. This is just a traditional, it's a new spin on the traditional funnel. The sales funnel, like the awareness to purchase intent and how things go through. So we use this as a way to segment what are the goals of your campaign and what are you trying to do. So if you launch a TV campaign, is it to grow brand equity or is it to get people to buy more of that product? And where does that sit on the spectrum? One of my coworkers would always say, you don't want to judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. So this is a way to segment out things to say, if you're doing a C campaign, which is an awareness one, ooh, the yellow looks terrible here, make people see and remember the brand, and then we have some tools to support that. Then we have the Think, which is consideration. This is when you start Googling something, you see an ad on TV, you see a YouTube ad, and you decide not to skip it, or you engage with it, leave comments, any sort of social interaction that you guys have falls under the Think bucket. And then you have the Do bucket. This is your purchase, these are your sales, these are your bottom line metrics. And a lot of businesses, especially direct response ones where you buy things online, like Dell computers, they focus very heavily on Do. But what we have seen is that as you work on those upper funnel stuff, those Do metrics also improve. So there's halo effects for what you're doing because you're driving more people interested. And here's a quick anecdote. Working on Dell, we started cutting away all best computer keywords on search. When you search those little boxes that come at the top that says ad that you can click on? So they cut away all that because they're like, our most efficient thing is Dell XPS 15. But then all of a sudden the queries or the searches for Dell XPS 15 started dropping. So they kept optimizing to the most efficient thing, but they ended up losing scale and volume. So this was something where you have to think about everything and what does what within your campaign. And then you finally have loyalty. So this is maintaining a consumer relationship. This is your CRM systems, customer relationship management system. And again, we have some tools for that. And putting them on the spectrum, these are the tools that I mess with pretty much every day. And what's cool is I have a lot of signals. There's over 1 billion searches, I think every couple hours. I don't remember the metric, it updates every couple months. But there's a lot of searches. So there's a lot of intent. And what I really like about it, and I'll show you some examples here, is that it gets me to get very, very specific on things. So Google Search, an intent engine. I put out a survey once, and we have Google consumer surveys that you can launch, and you can ask any sort of question. I got in trouble because I wanted to settle a bar bet saying who was a better dancer, Beyonce or Michael Jackson. Obviously, Michael Jackson won 75-25, so I won that bet. But she was blinded by her love by Beyonce. So I said I would bring it up to as many meetings as I can so it would justify the cost of the survey. So I just wanted to throw that in there. So what I really like about autocomplete, and this is a really basic thing, is you start typing in a brand and then hit space. So for instance, if you type in, why do I feel so, with a space, you get bloated, sad, tired, alone. So this is actually directly opposite of what people are posting about on social media about their amazing vacation and their amazing boyfriend and their baby and their dog that gets a lot of likes because it's all a big like factory, but that's fine. I digress. You can also do this for brands. So this one I brought up to the CMO of Heineken. We were in a meeting together, and I was like, if you want a quick pulse on your brand, just start typing why does, why is, why are with your brand, and you can see if there's significant query volume ranked in order of what people care about or what people are thinking and clicking on. So this one he found hilarious, but at the same time it was just like a great chance to kind of talk to those consumers who are asking questions about your brand. Because if you're going to Google and searching for something about a brand, you already care. It's a matter of just taking that next step and then fostering that communication to them. And then what's the best? Android phone, way to lose weight, definition of non-renewable resources. That was probably based off of recent politics. And then the best cell phone. So this is something that, if this is the top of what's the best, and you're a cell phone manufacturer, these are things that have large volume and large scale that you should be thinking about of how to address those questions that your consumers are asking. So can anyone guess what this is? So you can see there's a big spike around New Year's here, and there's a spike pretty much weekly. What's that?
The election.
Okay, that's
Election and inauguration.
oh
Wait, sorry, that's 2015. Never mind.
I thought it was
Sorry.
no worries. What's
It's
that?
like Halloween and New Year's drinking periods.
Yep, vodka and hangover searches. Very good, you got it. There you go. We know who recently graduated. No. I'm teasing, but yeah. So this again is something. I mean, I always ask myself, who is typing in vodka just to search for vodka? But it is surprising. People actually confess things to Google, like it's absurd what I'm playing with, but this is what people are doing at scale. So it's fun, and that's why I really like my job. So here's an example of someone who was looking at these consumer trends and decided to take advantage of this and actually change their business and create a new product based off of the interests here. Oop. Let's see. How many of you guys are familiar with ombre hair? Raise your hand. Yep, mostly. Oh, there we go. Okay. Usually it's a very obvious gender divide. I didn't know about it before this video, so I'll be completely honest with you guys. Let's see. Here you go. Oh, come on. You know, this is, let's see, present, play. There we go. Ooh. No. That's awful. Hold on. Even L'Oreal ombre hair Google. See, I mean, it's always bad when there's a technical problem when I'm in front of clients because they're like, "Aren't you Google?" Ho ho ho. I'm like, never heard that one. Thanks, guys. There you go.
Now in the new context of digital, the great thing is that it's easier for the consumer to be even more immediate at the moment of inspiration. My name is Julie Chamberlain, and I'm the VP of Marketing for L'Oreal Paris Hair Color. We started seeing this new look on celebrities and on fashion runways that was the ombre look. So then we turned to search to find out, is the everyday woman knowing about this look, and if so, she's searching for it and how. We saw a considerable rise in search terms for ombre hair or dip dye hair, but what was clearly missing was an application tool, which signaled to us that L'Oreal could come and fill a need in the consumer marketplace to get ombre at home. 50% of the consumers who bought ombre were new to the category, a huge success. So it's really building that trust with our brand that we're going to bring those solutions to her every time. We stayed close to the consumer and used our search data really along the whole consumer journey. From the product development stage to what kind of content we were going to serve to her, under what message and in what mediums. We call it marketing Nirvana. I mean, if we can find out when is she searching, what is she searching for, and therefore what is the right message to serve her in what medium, I mean, it's really beautiful for everyone.
And there's the montage afterwards. Yay. So, oops, going to flip over here. All right, back to present mode. So what do you guys think? Kind of cool, right? They made a whole new product. So how do we use this data? So we inform creative, the example of creating products, test how it drives impact, understand what regions and where people are searching, and see related categories. There's a million things that we've done with these kind of things, but I think that it's really, really great that, whoops, I forgot my clicker over here, that we can see that consumers are looking for diversified products. They don't want the Model T where it could come in any color so long as it's black. They want variety, and they're searching for that variety. So in a consumer-centric businesses, which has been the way it's been shifting. Before it was very product centric. Now it's consumer centric, where you're trying to fulfill a need for the consumer and they're going to get it from you, someone else, or somewhere else. They want to get ahead of this, and this is why the trends and reports and the way people search and the way it fractals off is really important to big businesses, because it's not about scale anymore, it's about personalization. And this leads me directly to the next, directly to the next, you work at Google, I get it. Leads me directly to the next section, which is talking about media and media consumption behavior. It's the same thing where instead of being forced, these are the 4 channels that you can get on network television, or 5 channels, and you have to watch what we put on. Now it's on demand. I mean, how many people are cord cutters in the room? No cable subscription. Great. How many people are just network only? And then how many people have Netflix subscriptions or HBO Go? Okay, wow. So thanks for proving yes. One room it didn't work in and it was really embarrassing. So great, thanks guys. So yeah, with the way people are looking at media, at products, it's just another product where they want it now and they want something more specific. My old boss, who just recently went over to Netflix, he is in charge of consumer engagement, but one of the things they said was their failure rates for new programming is too low. They are not trying to do something cutting edge enough. And what they really want to do is they want to establish this relationship with customers to say, that show's only available on Netflix and that show speaks specifically to me, as opposed to a general watered down kind of Transformers kind of movie where it's just a big blockbuster. So they're actually trying to fail more, to learn more and see what kind of consumers and segmentations speaks directly to you. I could also tie in, you guys know OkCupid? The guy who created it was a data scientist. I have a huge man crush on the guy. I think he's great. He looked at the people when there was the star ratings, and they wanted to see what kind of people got the most messages. So if there were 2 people and they both had an average of 3-star ratings, the ones that got 1s and 5s got a message rate of I think like 10 times more than the one that got average 3s across the board. So it's kind of, if you had that niche and you had the people that says that's the right person for me, or that's the right product for me, or that's the right type of content for me, it really resonates and adds a level of impact and engagement that you can't get elsewhere. Cool, so here's an example of FiberFix. Is Elsa in the room? There we go. So we were talking about this yesterday. She actually got targeted with this ad. And I asked her, what did I ask you?
You asked me where I saw it and why, would I?
What kind of content do you consume on YouTube?
Oh, DIY.
So yeah, so it's DIY. So you have a DIY blog. So Google identified that and put this ad right in front of her because FiberFix is for the DIY enthusiasts. So are you guys familiar with FiberFix? Show of hands, anyone? Have you seen it on Shark Tank? I'm going to skip. This is kind of over the top, but here I'm going to go. Yeah, it's way over the top, but right here is the part that I want to show you guys.
Do you think they shop online or infomercials?
Not yet, too early.
Hardware store.
Yeah, they're arguing. Okay, here you go.
We're concerned about, if it goes well, now you've got to put $1 million, $2 million, $3 million to buy it.
That's exactly the point.
We'll do that. How are you guys going to pay for the infomercials? $90,000 isn't going to do it. $120,000 isn't going to do it.
You're right, on traditional media it won't, but luckily you have really great targeting on YouTube. That's my infomercial to match that one. But what, I know, I'm sorry, I'm really carding. What's really funny is like the session I went to before was super professional and really, really good. I don't know if you saw Lauren's session, it was very sharp. I was like, oh man, I feel really informal compared to you and it's very scary. But anyways, sorry, case study, FiberFix. So we looked at the search query volume, and this is something you can look at, Google Trends. You go to Google Trends, type in any keyword, you can see, when search query spikes. So you can see here when they were on Shark Tank, that was the first spike. Then they were on, I guess it was a repeat of the Shark Tank. And then over here they ran a YouTube campaign. And the YouTube campaign was so good. I love this commercial. I watch this regularly for fun, this ad. And I show this to a lot. I know it's sad, I know. But I show this to clients all the time because you know that little skip button where you can choose to skip that ad on YouTube? If they skip, they don't pay. They only pay for 30 seconds or until the ad completes, whatever happens first. But you charge more if a lot more people skip. So on average, you see maybe 12 to 14% skip rate, watch rate. This ad was off the charts. It was more than 3-4 times that. So let me show you this ad. Oops, well first let me show you this. Look at where they searched. They're based out of Salt Lake City, Utah, so that's corporate headquarters. You can see here, what is it related? You can see the Shark Tank came up with FiberFix, so people were interested. They found it on Shark Tank. This is all, and they're actually not my client. I just really like their ad. But this is as an example. But now I want to show you the ad because I love this one.
What happens when you flip a bar with a roll cage held together by duct tape? That was a dummy. I never get in that car. It's held together by duct tape. But what if you use tape? Strong as steel. Manliness. Strong as steel. Here's the thing.
All right.
Your shovels break, pipes leak, your muffler falls off because manly man
Will not be muffled.
So you need
All right. Sorry. So I really like that. It shows the product. And you know, if you could skip in the first 5 seconds, what I'll do in a client meeting is play the first 5 seconds and then stop it. And they're like, why? We didn't even see you go off the cliff. And I'm like, that's what your ads should be. You know, these guys were digital first. They invested in the platform and they understood the unit. And they knew that they were speaking to an audience, first DIY, people who are on YouTube, and they matched that format. The Geico, you can't skip that ad, that was also matching that format. I think those excellent executions that we see from that really drives it home for new products and products that might not have those big advertising budgets that could, you know, go behind info or pay for those infomercials. This costs 3 cents a view or 5 cents a view only if you watch it. It's like sending out a whole bunch of invites to people and only the people that RSVP you pay for. So it's really, really nice unit and cost effective to reach only within a mile radius of your store. If you have brick and mortar, only among DIY people who would be using this product. So this is, again, why the transformation from digital or TV to digital has been increasing at a rate in which it is. Here is another, whoops, come on. Google. That joke is getting old, I know. I'm sorry. Let's go back to present mode. Come on, Google Slides. So here's another thing that we worked on. I used to work in the food beverage division at Google for 3.5 years before this role. And what we looked at was search queries of all different food categories. And what we wanted to determine were who was rising, who was falling, who were the ones that were spiking suddenly, and what were the subcategories or underpinnings of what's going on. And you can get this, I think, with Google Food Trends Report. Shameless plug for that one. But we split up into 5 different categories. So we have food with a function, so this is your healthy related things. You know, they spike on Mondays, they drop on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, not surprising. You know, turmeric was the one that we went on a deep dive in. Then we had traveling through taste. So this is the cultural influence of, you know, on the West Coast, you see a lot more rice queries and mashed potato queries. On the East Coast, more mashed potato queries relative to each other. So and then South or the Sunshine Belt, a lot more Mexican queries. So it's taking the culture and the foods of the neighbors and people who are immigrating or emigrating and bringing it to the forefront. So pho was the one that we looked at. It was very heavily West Coast. I learned how it was pronounced. It's pho, not faux. I made that mistake in front of clients. We have experimenting with pork. So this is instead of just bacon, because everyone knows the internet bacon, yeah, we get it. There's a lot of other pieces you can use. And when I was presenting this, a client told me, oh yeah, pork prices has fallen significantly lately. So because of the falling in the prices, people are searching more for different diverse recipes. Awesome. Bite-sized snacks, you want to be healthy, but at the same time you want to indulge. You want something customized, bite-sized, you have bite-sized snacks. And then the pasta comeback. This one's kind of crazy because people are searching for it more, but buying it less. So when we went into Trader Joe's and your Whole Foods and all those trendy food places, and we were asking the stock guys, like, hey, are these increasing or decreasing? They said, well, actually, pasta doesn't sell that well. It's the zoodles. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, zoodles. It's a new thing in the pasta world. It's kind of a big deal, I guess. I don't know. But here's an example of some risers. You could see pho, overnight oats, rising stars. So the difference is sustained risers, constant, safe bet. Your seasonal risers, they're rising, but over certain seasons. So your health foods in the beginning of the year, you know, the, pork shoulder, smash cake. You guys familiar with smash cakes, gender reveal? That's such a millennial trend. I'm a millennial too, but I'm kind of also an old man at heart. Smash cakes is for the first birthday, the first time kids are allowed to have sugar. They give them the cake, it smashes all over their face, they take pictures, it's really cute, half the time they're crying. The other one is gender reveal. You cut in, if it's pink it's a girl, if it's blue it's a boy. These are things that are really rising pretty steadily over the seasons, and then you have your rising stars. Those are the ones that are just shooting right up. Jackfruit is a replacement for pork. It has the similar texture, but it's a fruit. I know it's kind of weird. I like my pork, but it is a vegetarian version, and it's actually pretty good. Not as good as pork. But here's something, again, that I want to tie this back to the fractalization and everything that's going on. So quinoa is a seasonal decliner. When we went in, we saw that quinoa sales are up, but what we saw that the searches went up and then fell off a cliff. How many of you guys have made quinoa before? It's pretty easy, right? You make it once and you're like, okay, I don't have to search this every single time. So with that, it really shows that it was driving the initial interest and future growth. It wasn't showing the actual sales of it. But what we did see was a whole bunch of different categories under quinoa start springing up, like quinoa with spinach, quinoa recipes that have X in it. All those things increase the same way. Again, media, products, all those things are diversifying and becoming much more specific. Also, wedding cakes is dropping off, which is kind of interesting. You have like donuts, cookies, other things to kind of buck the tradition here. Cool, so TV to streaming, giving users choice. So, any questions about the first section? How much time? We're doing okay, right? We're having fun? Yeah, cool. Okay, anyone have any questions about that first part?
Just don't diss my bacon again.
What's that?
I said, just don't diss my bacon again.
There you go. Anyone else? No? Okay, cool. I like you guys. All right, so let's talk about metrics here. This is when it gets really boring, but don't worry, I'll be quick, I promise. So this is average time spent per day in the U.S. for adults in 2011. And you can see here, this is the amount of time per day on average people spend against all these different media sources. And you can see in 2015, surprise, people are more digital. But I think the interesting thing is most of that growth has been driven by mobile. And on average, a person checks their phone 150 times. If you have your work email, it's probably way, way higher than that. Does this sound right to you guys? I mean, I'm sure you've heard these kind of things all the time. But here's something that was really interesting that Nielsen, so Nielsen does ratings for TV, digital, all those things. They put together a report to look to see if you lined up all the TV people, or all the people watching TV from heaviest TV to lightest TV, and split it into 5 different groups, what do they look like, and how are these groups behaving? So the top 40% consume 80% of the overall television. So if you're a marketer and you're going mass market, you're going to start heavying up and hitting people with an ad 3 times, 4 times. I don't know if you guys have seen a show and the same commercial comes on multiple times and it drives you nuts. This is increasing your frequency, and this is something that, a lot of advertisers, when you're looking at reach, you want to reach more people with a lower frequency than many people too many times. There's a balance between that. Usually around 3 is an average that you would want to look for. But you can see here, this is what's happening. And if you look at it from a demographic standpoint, 65 plus is the only group that has been going up over time. Everyone else is going down. And you can see here, if you split it, 65, 50 to 64, they kind of go up and down. This is a following year after the previous chart. US population down 11%. And you can see, depending on what audience that you're talking to, you're going to want to either increase or decrease your digital spend. So if you're trying to reach 65-year-old plus female, TV is the spot to do it. If you're trying to reach 18 to 24-year-old male, YouTube is the place to do it. Those are the extremes. And there's shades in between and balances in between. The reason for the female split, if you want to reach males at scale on TV, you buy sports. So it's actually very high and costly to do that. So that's just kind of why there's the male-female split. So no surprising is that heavy TV users stream a lot less than light TV users. So this is again talking about diversification. You have the diminishing returns curve. Are you guys familiar with it? It kind of just looks like a curve that goes up and flattens out. As you spend more and more money, you'll reach more and more people, but eventually the platform is limited. So that ceiling on television is going down, on digital it's going up, and then the steepness, because TV is generally cheaper on a per person basis, they're steeper. So I always recommend, if you're doing mass market, buy TV, because your first spot is super efficient. I'm talking about not your first dollar, spend that on TV. Your last dollar though, you might want to consider on digital, because you're hitting that same person many, many times. And this is why the balance is really what's important. Brands that are speaking to 18 to 34-year-olds, I've seen spend 99% of their budget on television and 1% on digital. And I'm like, guys, this is not necessarily where your audience is if you want to speak to that group and speak to them authentically. So here's an example of the distribution between the different groups. Graphs, yay. Okay, so we're done with the boring section. We feel good. I know the itis is setting in. You guys had lunch. So I guess we'll just move right along. Here's an example of some creative testing that we get to do. And this is really, really cool. Do any of you guys are you YouTube creators? Have you ever uploaded anything to YouTube? Yep, okay, so have you seen this retention curve here? This looks at, as your video plays, when people turn it off and click out. So actually a lot of movie companies will cut 5 trailers, they'll upload all 5, see which ones have the least skip rates or the highest watch through rates, and then they'll look at this on a per second basis and say, wow, that was the boring part of my trailer, I'm gonna recut it, and then they launch it on television. So it's actually flipped the model on its head, saying, hey, I'm gonna run this against different groups, different types of people, and see who respond to what where. And that informs everything further upstream. Because if you're spending the big ticket items, like if you're running a Super Bowl ad, you probably want to test it before putting it out there. It's expensive, as you guys know from the lumber guy. He's not here, I don't think. But anyways, it's expensive. And then another thing that you could do after the fact is ask them questions. Do you remember seeing that ad? Which of these brands do you remember? It's a control exposed, so you can see the actual, will they remember it? Are they more likely to purchase after the fact? So we're working our way down through our see, think, do, care model that I brought up earlier. C is just your reach. How many people saw your ad? Yes or no? And then here is, which ad have you heard of? Are you more likely to purchase? Would you be more excited about this? But you can also follow up with Google consumer surveys. You can ask them anything. So for me, it was Michael and Beyonce, who's a better dancer. But you can ask legit questions after they watch your ad. So this again allows you to target to very specific groups. You can ask qualifying questions. We had one asking only aerospace engineers could fill out the survey. And the first question was an aerospace engineer question that if you knew it, you pass through no problem because it's an easy one. But if you didn't know it, you get kicked out and you wouldn't get asked any questions. We can get really, really granular to learn a lot and pull out those insights from the people. The keynote speaker yesterday, he looks at YouTube comments as a way to kind of gain inspiration and try to see what people are actually saying. Here's another example. We ran for a gum company. This was a fun one. They had 5 different creatives, and they were going after 2 different audiences, one 18 to 24, one 25 plus. And they had 5 different ads, so we ended up running 10 campaigns. And what we wanted to see was the entire funnel, see, think, do, care, what responded where. So they did some tracking in terms of purchasing. They did some tracking in terms of did they click the ad or not. You can see all those metrics we tracked to see how is it performing. And then we came back to our advertiser and was like, okay, this is what works where against who. Which ones should we heavy up? Which ones should we cut? How do you guys want to proceed to put this on traditional media? And they found this very valuable. And this is, again, flipping that model on its head and getting really, really narrow and specific with your audiences. So summary, products are becoming diversifying over time. I can't read. Media consumption is as we want it and what we want. Testing provides ways that advertisers could understand who to reach, how to reach, and when to reach them. I think that this is the best part of my job, is that I get to play around with consumer intent. Another question I asked was on a consumer survey was, how much of your social media posts do you feel comfortable sharing with your friends and family, versus how much of your search history do you feel comfortable sharing with your friends and family? So as you can imagine, certain demographics varied very differently in their responses. Young males had the biggest discrepancy between social media posts and search history. I don't know why, but I'm sure I could ask follow-up questions. So again, this is something that I find fascinating, and I think that, you know, using digital